Now we're going to be talking about naltrexone for managing alcohol use disorder. This is, at least in the United States, the biggest gun, the most widely used medication. Oral naltrexone was FDA approved in the U.S. in 1994 on the basis of reducing heavy drinking, not abstinence. Its mechanism is by blocking endogenous opioid release in response to alcohol intake, and thereby it reduces the rewarding effects of alcohol. Effects are greatest when craving is prominent, and that's probably because in all substances of abuse, it is the anticipatory phase of using a substance that actually results in a greater release of dopamine than when we're actually using the substance, and that's true for alcohol as well. Naltrexone can be initiated in a once-daily dose of 25 milligrams and after 3 days increase to 50 milligrams. There are a lot of people that start right at 50 milligrams, but I find this dosing regimen eases stomach problems and reduces any perceived side effects. If naltrexone is ineffective, as early as 7 days, you can increase the dose to 100 milligrams. I actually rarely see this done. People tend to stick at 50 milligrams and add other medications. But if the liver's doing fine and you're getting partial effect of the naltrexone, you should consider going up in the dose. If there's reasons of compliance where a person doesn't want to dose every day, you can dose it as 100 milligrams on Monday, 100 milligrams on Wednesday, and 150 milligrams on Friday. That's basically the equivalent of 50 milligrams a day, but it's just given in 3 doses instead of 5. I show here the reason why this medication was approved for the basis of reducing heavy drinking, but not abstinence. So this is a graph showing on the left the dopaminergic neuron in the VTA, the ventral tegmental area in the midbrain, going out in the ventral striatum to the nucleus accumbens. Dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens is the final pathway for the reward of multiple substances. Well, it turns out that in the hypothalamus, you release beta endorphins from the arcuate nucleus in response to alcohol use. So what do those beta endorphins do? Well, they impact the nerve terminal, the VTA, dopaminergic neuron nerve terminal, to potentiate release of dopamine. On the opposite side, they inhibit the inhibitory GABAergic interneuron in the VTA that impacts the cell body. So that's a double negative. What does that mean? That's the second mechanism that actually potentiates dopamine release. So alcohol potentiates dopamine release that is increased by endogenous opioid tone, and therefore, how would you block it? You'd block it with an opiate blocker, and that's naltrexone. The meta-analysis from McFeeters, O'Connor, Riley et al. From 2023 shows that for return to heavy drinking, naltrexone versus placebo had a risk ratio of 0.86, so it cuts down the return to heavy drinking. But for return to any drinking, that is abstinence, the risk ratio is 0.95. Basically, no effect on abstinence, but a moderate effect on reducing heavy drinking. So again, I emphasize these are not magic bullets. These are meant to be used in combination with behavioral treatments. Oral naltrexone, what are its adverse effects? Administering naltrexone as an opioid blocker will cause opioid withdrawal in those that are physically dependent on opioids. So make sure that your patient isn't expecting to be using PRN opioids or maintained on long-term opioid therapy. And interestingly, make sure that since the comorbidity of opioid use disorder and alcohol use disorder is definitely present, that if somebody is using even methamphetamine and cocaine, which in the United States is virtually always contaminated with fentanyl, make sure that you don't have the risk of inducing opioid withdrawal when you put somebody on this. Common side effects: nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramping, elevated LFTs. It's uncommon at standard dosing. Headache, and something I've seen in colleagues who acted as controls in their own studies, you can get dysphoria. Some people actually get feelings of depression on them or anxiety. Avoid using naltrexone if you're seeing LFTs are 5 times the upper limit of normal. And of course, in severe liver impairment, Child-Pugh Class C. I do not say rule out the use of naltrexone when you have high LFTs, but if you're going to do that, make sure you're monitoring very quickly what's happening to the LFTs after you start it. In hepatic disease, for oral and injectable naltrexone, cases of hepatitis and clinically significant liver dysfunction have been observed during clinical development, but no cases of hepatic failure or death. Therefore, the FDA has advised patients be warned of the risk of hepatic injury and advised to seek medical attention if they experience any symptoms of acute hepatitis, in which case naltrexone should be discontinued right away. The levels of oral naltrexone in compensated and decompensated cirrhosis are markedly elevated. Since we have a very high therapeutic window of safety for this agent, that's not so bad, but you may have increased side effects. So in those cases of cirrhosis, you may want to use a lower dose, say 25 milligrams. The injectable naltrexone pharmacokinetics aren't altered in mild or moderate hepatic impairment, but adequate studies in severe hepatic impairment, again, Child-Pugh C, have not been conducted. How should we adjust naltrexone in the presence of hepatic disease? Well, concerns about hepatotoxicity and altered pharmacokinetics underlie much of the use of naltrexone. I think that's unfortunate because in many cases you're going to find when you start naltrexone in somebody with elevated LFTs or even somebody with cirrhosis who's been waiting on a transplant list, you'll find not only do the LFTs go down, but if you can keep somebody from drinking, you might get them to that life-saving liver transplant. Clinical experience and many reports support the safe use of naltrexone in those with liver disease, despite transient elevations in transaminases, which is about 1.5% of those on naltrexone and almost 1% of those on placebo. In a study of 160 patients by Ayala et al., 63% of those had alcohol liver disease, 30% had cirrhosis, and 14% had decompensated cirrhosis. All three groups showed improvement in AST and ALT values with naltrexone treatment. So we can conclude naltrexone is safe with those in underlying liver disease, including compensated cirrhosis. But I would be more careful in decompensated cirrhosis with very careful monitoring. Let's talk about extended release naltrexone, which is in the United States becoming more used because the formularies are becoming less restrictive. In 2006, the first injectable naltrexone was approved for treatment of alcohol use disorder. It's a 380 milligram injection, which is given in the deep gluteal muscle every 4 weeks, and you tend to alternate sides. It blocks opioid receptors for 1 entire month, and its effects on heavy drinking are greatest in those with at least 4 days of abstinence prior to treatment initiation. And in this group, treatment improved continuous abstinence rates as well as reduced heavy drinking. So is this much of a limitation, the abstinence? Well, first of all, many of us would like to see people tolerate some oral naltrexone before they go on to the injectable. So either they've gotten the 4 days of abstinence from being in a detox, or they've been on the oral naltrexone before they go on the injectable. So in practical terms, it really doesn't limit our use of the agent. Adverse effects. It is a fairly large volume for inject, so you get injection site reactions. You can get nausea and vomiting, but less than the oral. You can get precipitated opioid withdrawal in those that were dependent. Again, depression, elevated LFTs. If somebody goes into an emergency room, for example, having broken an arm, and they're on the injectable, they should be in a medically monitored setting because to override the blockade, you'd probably need to use higher doses of the opioid. The next slide shows a nice meta-analysis by Murphy et al. Showing the effect sizes for reducing of heavy drinking days. Both drinking days and heavy drinking days are moderately significantly reduced by extended release naltrexone. So the key points in this section: oral and injectable naltrexone are FDA-approved medications to treat alcohol use disorder, and in fact, they're the most widely used agent. Naltrexone blocks mu-opioid receptors and so reduces the rewarding effects of alcohol, thereby reducing heavy drinking more than abstinence. Naltrexone is well supported as an efficacious treatment for alcohol use disorder in combination with behavioral treatments AA, etc. And naltrexone can be safely used in those with alcoholic liver disease. The worse the liver disease, the more careful the monitoring you want to do in follow-up.